On the banks of the Yellowstone River in eastern Montana, the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry is guarding a team of engineers, surveying a railroad line that will cut across the Great Plains. Leading the expedition is Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. Along with his trusted scout, Bloody Knife, tense music plays, "You warrior shouts." Soldier screams in distance. Warrior shouts. Narrator. From the moment Custer enters Lakota territory, he realizes he's facing an enemy like no other. In the 9 years since he lost his first major battle against the United States Army at Killdeer Mountain, Sitting Bull has learned how to fight the Americans, and over the next few weeks, he and his warriors relentlessly harass Custer's forces. Lakota warriors chose when to make war upon Americans very carefully. They wanted an advantage in numbers. They wanted the high ground. It was very helpful if they had the advantage of surprise. Soldier grunts, whoops, guns firing. Narrator. Leading the battles are Sitting Bull's most trusted lieutenants, Gall and Crow King, along with the great Oglala warrior, Crazy Horse. Soldier. Regroup. Regroup. Narrator. After weeks of fighting, the Yellowstone expedition ends. For Custer, who'd hoped to beat back the Lakota and gain personal glory, the mission is a failure. Meg and Kate, Sitting Bull really did get the better of Custer. He had provided such intense resistance to the Northern Pacific surveyors that they were never able to build the line in the 1870s. Narrator. Sitting Bull's resistance to the railroads has even greater consequences back east. When the railroad defaults on its loans, the bank that issued them collapses, causing a financial panic across Wall Street. Edward, there is no stock in the world that is more oversold and speculative than railroad stocks. So, this great, big investment firm overextends themselves, and when the company goes under, they pull with them many other banks, many other investment houses. So, there's this tremendous implosion of the economy. It's called the Panic of 1873. 55,000 businesses fold, 5,000 banks fail. It triggers a 5-year, 5-month period of economic contraction, and that's the longest in U.S. history. It was the first really huge economic turndown in industrial American history, and it led to bankruptcies, unemployment, and despair. Narrator. The economic crisis is so severe that until the 1930s, this will be known as the Great Depression. As President Ulysses S. Grant begins his second term, he faces a problem he has no idea how to solve. Then, news reaches him from the Black Hills, in the Dakota Territory, that could lift the country out of its financial crisis. Edward and expedition head into the Black Hills in the summer of 1874, and they discover large deposits of gold. Reporters send news of this strike back to the east, and within just a matter of days, the entire nation knows of this great gold strike that has taken place in the Black Hills. Narrator. The news triggers a massive gold rush, and thousands of Americans pour into the Black Hills. Clay. Suddenly, there was going to be this great infusion of gold, and that would not only repair the treasury, but provide employment for thousands and thousands of good Americans. Narrator. But there's a problem. The Black Hills are part of the Great Sioux Reservation, promised to the Lakota. In the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, Cheyenne, the Black Hills' cultural meaning within the Lakota, it's so sacred. You know, the Black Hills are considered to be one of the sources of life, a great resource for any kind of food, water. They were just an oasis in the middle of the Great Plains. Narrator. Grant knows that a crisis is brewing. Once gold was discovered, there was no stopping the amount of greed, and prospectors, and fortune seekers that descended on the Black Hills. They weren't going to honor laws that said that parcel land belonged to a particular tribe. Forget any treaty, forget any rights. Christie, you've got prospectors intruding on the lands that belong to the Lakota. Grant is somebody who says you should be a man of your word. I mean, that was sacred to him. And the word of the nation's treaty was stay out of the Black Hills. Narrator. On November 3, 1875, Grant summons his generals and advisors for a secret meeting at the White House. Mark Lee. President Grant has decided we've got to crush Sitting Bull. We've got to crush Crazy Horse. We have to crush all these that are living out here, causing you no supposed problems for the miners and other settlers. And so, they issue an ultimatum. Narrator. The ultimatum states that all native people, not living on reservations, must surrender to us forts by the end of January 1876, or they'll be considered hostile. If Sitting Bull refuses to surrender to the reservation, he'll make every one of his people a target of the U.S. Army. But the Lakota leader holds firm. Water hisses. The January deadline comes and goes, with no sign of Sitting Bull or his people. Ominous music plays. At that point, Grant takes on the role he did in the Civil War, which is we're gonna win this. Meg and Kate. Really what that meant is that the U.S. Army had full reign to engage in total war against the Lakota people. They're close. Custer, how many? Thousands. Narrator Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer and his scout, Bloody Knife, had been searching for Sitting Bull and his followers for over a month. Now, they're within 5 miles of his massive camp, situated along the banks of the Little Bighorn River in Montana. The camp has grown to nearly 7,000 followers, with over 1,500 warriors, more than twice as many soldiers as the 7th Cavalry. But Custer is undeterred. Custer felt that to defeat a Lakota camp, you had to surprise them. If we find them and we can surprise them, the fighting will be a secondary consideration. The 7th Cavalry would have the capability to deal with any size camp they came up to. Narrator, even though he's outnumbered, he decides to move in. Edward, he sees this as a moment to redeem himself, to add greater glory to his reputation, to pull him to a new height of fame and possibly fortune. And so, that's going to influence his decision-making. Narrator. Custer divides his men into 3 groups. He orders one column to capture any fleeing villagers. Then he orders another battalion, including Bloody Knife, to attack the village from the south. Finally, Custer will lead a 3rd unit to flank the village and charge from the north, crushing the Lakota camp. On the other side of the village, Crazy Horse is mobilizing his warriors. Horse was an unbelievable warrior. He was an instinctive leader, and he is incredibly talented and charismatic on the battlefield, and his warriors would follow him anywhere. As the battle unfolds, Lakota warriors like Gall look to exploit any advantage. Gall played a very prominent role at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Gall led a group of Lakotas to confront us forces, arrow swishes, guns firing. Jim, the Lakota, used the gullies, the ravines, to encroach on the soldier position. They understand the terrain to a level that these soldiers simply cannot. Narrator. As U.S. forces battle the Lakota Custers, Scout Bloody Knife is determined to get his revenge on the Lakota tribe that shunned him. Gunfires. Indistinct shouting. Gunshot cracks. Looking back on Bloody Knife's life, he's really kind of a tragic figure. He could never achieve the peace or the happiness that he could have had if the Lakota had just fully adopted him into the nation. Very tragic figure. Indistinct shouting. Indistinct shouting. Hold the line, hold the line. Mark Lee, the critical mistake Custer makes, is dividing his regiment into 3 battalions, then striking from different positions. This allows the Lakotas under Crazy Horse and Gall to attack those units piecemeal and defeat them. Hold the line, shouting narrator. Custer is outmanned and surrounded. Foreboding music plays, gunshot cracks, warriors cheering. Courtney the cavalry came charging. We charged right back and overwhelmed them. And there lied Pihin Hanska, the great Indian killer, laying on a hill there, dead. History will tell us that Custer's ego and arrogance sealed his fate. Certainly, he was overconfident, attacking a village that size. And it was a cultural bias against this idea that one regiment could defeat any number of Native Americans. Custer did not know the confidence of the Lakota both as a nation and as warriors. Whoops, all of that confidence came to fore and ended up in Custer's demise. Narrator. In less than an hour, Sitting Bull's warriors wipe out Custer's 7th Cavalry and celebrate an unprecedented victory against the United States. Today, the Lakota people and their culture live on thanks to the legacy of Sitting Bull. Elizabeth Sitting Bull really exists as a symbol of indigenous strength, hope, and inspiration. This is not some distant historic figure. This is a real person who had a transformative effect, not only in Native American history, but in American history as a whole. The thread that I see in Sitting Bull's life is that he was consistently and adamantly always in support of protecting Lakota land from the intrusion of the United States. Paul, he's seen as a heroic freedom fighter, someone who stood against the American onslaught and who defended the rights of his people. Frank, for me, as a young Lakota person, Sitting Bull represents resistance. He never stopped being Lakota. He said, "I just wanted to be known in history. I was the last warrior to give up his gun."